How's it going this week, everybody? This week I'm going to be having Shawn on the show, and he came on to share his unusual paranormal accounts that he was experiencing in his home. His cats actually started to react to this entity as well, which is very interesting. Also, quick shout out to all of the members. If you are interested in the membership, you can head over to challengetheunknown.com and sign up for early access to new episodes. Thanks for listening.
Okay, so 6 years ago, my wife and I adopted kittens, brother and sister. And when the kittens were about 5 or 6 months old, our male Mikey, we had a floor-to-ceiling cat tower across from the sofa on one side, and on the other side of that wall, there's a television. So we were watching TV one evening, and Mikey was playing with some kind of invisible thing in the corner of the room. And we were really distracted. He was a cute kitten playing with that invisible thing. And I went over to check. Maybe it was a mosquito, something had gotten in, but no. He was playing with just air. And as we watched him, the invisible spot on the wall moved from the corner over the cat tower. And he kept on batting at it as it was moving and moved off the cat tower. And he reached off the cat tower and tried to grab it. And then he just watched that invisible spot in the room, and we were watching him and watch that invisible spot. It went over to the room to where our television was, and when it got that far, the power indicator light on our television came on. The picture didn't. And it stayed like that for 2 or 3 seconds. My wife was sitting right next to me, and I was going to say something to her, but like I said, it was only 2 or 3 seconds. Before I could say something to her, the TV turned on.
Interesting, man. That's very interesting. You know, I hear a lot of accounts of weird electronic interference and happenings whenever people talk about this kind of paranormal stuff. And have you ever seen anything like this before?
At the current house, no. I had another incident many years ago that was completely unconnected to that.
Okay. Well, let's continue with this first story, and then we'll get to that first account after this. But what happens next?
Well, a few months later was our cat Mikey again, our kitten Mikey. We'd entered the living room. He had entered with us, and then he looked under our sofa and flattened his ears way down and let out a long hiss, very angry hiss at something under the sofa. So, of course, I immediately got down and looked under the sofa. Nothing there.
Interesting.
Yeah. So he was responding to something, definitely.
Yeah, I'd say so also. That's really weird, man. You know, a lot of people say that animals are super sensitive to this kind of stuff. So who knows, man? Who knows what your cat was seeing? So what happened after that?
Well, there was many years of absolutely nothing happening. Oh, and I think we should remind your guests that this is from Japan. I live and work in Japan. And I work as an English teacher in a nearby city. In Japan, there are lots of fields in these cities. It's different. You'll have like in the middle of a city, oftentimes you'll find a rice field or, a garden. This particular day, I was walking to work, and in the rain, heard some cries, very strange bird cries. And then it occurred to me they weren't bird cries, they were kittens. And I looked down in this field, in this garden, and I saw 2 newborn kittens caked in mud, being rained on, and obviously the mother had abandoned them. So I took them home. I didn't think that they would make it, but surprisingly, they both did.
Awesome.
And so we fostered them, and then when they were about 3 months old, the following thing happened. There are figurines that my wife and I have in our porch windowsill, and these are called maneki neko, or lucky cats in Japan. Maybe you've seen them in the movies.
Yeah, they're the little white cats, correct?
Yeah, the little white cats, and they have a gold coin in one paw, and they have another paw being raised up.
I actually have one of those.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. Uh, so these were arranged in a semicircle. And then one morning, I mentioned, hey, did you move the Maneki Neko? They're all like shoved over to one side. And then she told me, like, what? What are you talking about? She got very, very scared. She thought I was joking with her. She thought I was kidding with her. When she realized that I was telling the truth and this wasn't a prank, she got a bit upset. So we had salt on the windowsill as a remedy to that for a while.
Yeah, I kind of that superstitious legend there with the salt. You know that might bring some comfort to you, I guess. Did anything else happen after that?
Well, not with the kittens. Um, and that leads us to the last encounter. Um, once again, this involves my cat Mikey. He got sick last December. The reason he got sick was he had a little bit of an accident in the litter box, and he got a shower as a result of that, despite it being December. So he got a bit of a cat cold or a cat flu, and he spent the next 2 days on the couch. And the second day he was on the couch, my wife had gone downstairs earlier, and she was cooking, and she was turning on the TV. As she turned the TV to an input channel, she saw a very, very strange pattern on the screen, and she saw that photo that I sent to you.
Mm-hmm.
So that photo is, as you can see, it's a pink blob. For your guests, I guess I would describe it as being something like a putting a bunch of Jello together with an ice cream soup, with an ice cream scoop.
Yeah, it's a very
And
interesting photo, man. It definitely looks weird.
you can see there's something. It almost looks like it's coming through the TV. There's some very bright spots, but also at the top of this, there is. It kind of continues on and back. Just yeah, you can tell it's like something looking very, very 3D, looking like it's coming through the TV, but definitely not anthropomorphic. Looks like a kind of a blob of multifaceted Jello.
Ugh. Yeah, it's definitely not humanoid. That's for sure.
Unfortunately, unfortunately, I was upstairs when this photo was taken. It was a lazy Sunday morning for me, and I didn't get down, and unfortunately, she didn't call me down. And also, I asked her questions like, was this moving? Was it pulsing? And she wasn't wearing her glasses at the time, so she couldn't see very well.
Hmm.
So I couldn't get a lot of information out of her about this. And the other thing too is I didn't want to upset her too much. She's a little bit more sensitive towards these things than I am.
Yeah, I've noticed that with people. You know, some people are really uncomfortable with the topic. I've interviewed a couple of people that have had very violent, intense experiences with these type of entities or whatever they are. And man, it's rough, dude. You should really listen to this one in particular episode. I think it's episode 45 if you haven't had the chance to listen to it. But very violent paranormal stuff, and you know, I understand when people get uncomfortable about the topic because some of this stuff can be very extreme.
Yeah, yeah. This is a very benign spirit that we have, I believe, and that's good.
Yeah.
Very happy about that.
So,
Um,
so yeah, well, what happens after that? Was that the last part of this portion of the story, or does anything else happen after you got that photo?
Nothing has happened since we've gotten that photo.
Interesting. And then why don't we go back to your first encounter that you ever had? Why don't you tell the audience about that? What happened?
Okay, I was at a university town in the Midwest, and I was staying at a very old house. And in the middle of the night, I had woken up, and between the foot of my bed and my entertainment center, um, there was fog, very, very thick fog billowing up from the floor. I remember it was about 3 o'clock in the morning. It's like I just woke up. It was very hazy, and just kind of being hypnotized by this billowing fog. It was very, very billowing, like like a humidifier smoke, but much, much more than that. And I could see that just twinkling. I could see the lights of my entertainment center, twinkling up as the smoke or as the fog rose. It was a really a wonderful experience, I'd say.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I hear a lot about these mists that people describe. So let me kind of transition you to this. Let me get your opinion on what you think these things are, if you have an opinion. Do you think that they're people? Do you think that, these things exist in different light spectrums? What's your opinion on what these things are and where do they come from?
Well, I think that these are manifestations of the spirit world. The spirit world is something that extends into an extra dimension. And for us on Earth, all light, all energy comes from the sun. In one form or another, all energy that makes us, keeps us going comes from the sun. And we move up to the food chain, but, it's all powered by the sun. For the spirit world, everything seems to be powered by spirit energy or key energy. And different places produce different key energy. For example, we're living at the edge of a forest. I think what happened in the situation that we have in our house currently is that something from the forest came over into our house because it's nice here. There's a nice key energy for it to feed off of.
Yeah, man, that makes sense. I know there's a lot of theories out there, and I hope that one day we really get some good answers. I just don't think the technology is there yet for us to fully understand what these things are doing or, all that. But, it's fun to speculate. And I think your opinion on the matter is definitely sound. That's a solid theory.
And I also think that this isn't something that is a spirit of something dead. I think that things form in the spirit world kind of independently. Some things, of course, are souls of the dead, spirits of the dead, but I think also in the spirit world, things can form by themselves just by radiated energy. Like people will talk about the spirit of the forest, the spirit of the ocean, spirit of a lake. Sometimes things form from this energy, this radiated energy. And I think what we have right now is something that was formed from radiated energy. And what we see on the TV, that blob of pink jello, is what it looks like. That it was interfering with us because of, one thing that's very interesting to me. Two of these events, three of these events have involved kittens, and the other has involved a sick cat. Key energy gets radiated at different spectrums, at different bands. And when you have a small child, a lot of times, or something that's newborn, they have a powerful connection to the spirit world. And these kittens were able to coax something out of the spirit world, or agitate it out of the spirit world.
That's not
And
that's not far fetched, man. Are you familiar with poltergeist? I think it's an American term, but poltergeists are very similar in concept. It's a type of entity that feeds off of things like emotional distress, and a lot of accounts of these things generally originate around teenagers, during a time where there's a lot of emotional distress or during times where there's, family trouble, stuff like that. That's when poltergeists really are heard of and seen.
yeah, and a lot of
So,
this involves puberty too, from what I've read. Puberty, of course, being another like a rapid change of the body, like in childhood.
yep.
So. Maybe
Yeah,
different bands of key energy there too.
100%, man. Well, man, we're sitting at around 20 minutes here. I think we're about ready to wrap up if you're all good, unless you got a little bit more that you want to share.
Sure. One thing that talking about these spirit beings, I'd be kind of remiss if I didn't to talk about kamidana. Kamidana are Japanese spirit houses. Um, this is something that goes way back in Japan. People have shrines to household spirits, and they offer up sake, rice, cuttings of plants to keep the household spirits satisfied. And this is something that's throughout all of the Orient. For example, in Thailand, another place that's famous for spirit houses, in that case, they're called San Prapum. The spirit houses are kept outside of the house. They don't want the spirits inside the house. They keep them outside of the house. And they give offerings to them too. But even in the West, for example, in ancient Rome, uh, they had these same type of spirit houses, which were called lararium. And these household spirits were taken very seriously in ancient Rome. So same thing, offerings of food and offerings of money were left at an altar to the spirits and changed out very frequently.
Yeah, man, I've done a lot of research on a lot of the Japanese folklore when it comes to, the spirit world and yokai, because it's really fascinating, because they seem like they really have a deep understanding of these entities, and that comes with, the whole idea of offerings, and how it's kind of like a cultural thing. It seems like they really really know what they're talking about. While in the West, it's kind of like, there's old legends and stuff, but there's not as much lore behind it.
Yeah, that's a tradition that seems to have died out with the coming of Christianity in the West.
Yeah, I think you're right. There's still the whole, like, angels and demons concept, but beyond that, you don't really hear about things like offerings to spirits or anything like that. People don't really practice stuff like that here. Whenever there's intense hauntings that you hear about, and people that I've talked to that are experiencing very violent entities, generally the only thing that they'll do is they'll put crosses and stuff on the wall, and that generally just means either they're super religious or they're really, really scared. So, yeah, it's really interesting. It's crazy how just two different cultures handle these similar accounts so very differently,
Yeah, it really is. It really is.
100%, man. Well, I'd love to thank you for coming on, man, and I loved your story, and I'm sure someone's going to come forward with a similar one, so we'll have that to look forward to.
Well, thank you very much for having me on.